introduction, I'm Gabby or Gabrielle, whatever you would like to call me. I pronouns she, her, hers. I'm currently located in Atlanta, and I came to AI just because I'm generally interested in technology. I think my perspective on uh the ethics of AI is I'm still kind of grappling with it. Part of me loves it and part of me hates it. So it's kind of like I'm conflicted, I guess. But I think it's an important conversation to have, especially with everything happening in the music industry, which directly impacts music therapy as well. So that's me, and that's how I came to the conversation. Either Zoe or Samuel, whoever wants to go next.
Yeah, cool. Hi everybody. My name is Zoe. I have a private practice, River Run Music Therapy, and then I also teach at Shenandoah University. Um, and I kind of came to the AI conversation because I work with a lot of teenagers and I had folks bringing content to sessions, and I was like, maybe I should learn about this. And then I started talking about it with my Shenandoah students, and they are super cool, engaged, very curious people. And their curiosity sparked mine, and it's kind of just been a rolling ball on that. But kind of like Gabby said, it's curiosity that is sometimes like, oh, this is a really cool tool, and also this is something that we have to like think really critically about and use really carefully, just like we do with everything in therapy spaces. So I don't think I missed anything, but somehow.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Samuel Gracida. I'm originally from Mexico, but currently based in Heidelberg, Germany, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm representing Beta Digital. So if you don't know what that is, you can ask me later. But um, I'm very happy to talk about this. I've been thinking about AI even before being a music therapist, as I was in college and thinking about ideas. I remember reading some articles about it when it was definitely not a big thing yet. It was just like very theoretical. So I was interested back then, but now as a music therapist, I've seen it come up a lot in sessions as well, particularly because I also work with teenagers, with kids, so that's a big thing there. But also, I find it very, very useful for a lot of administrative things. I do a lot of administrative thing, which not people you tend not to like. So AI always helps with that, and also working with different languages and all the translation that means. It's also been very helpful with that. Also here working in Germany. So that's me. I think that's enough about me for now.
Cool. So that's us. And we're just gonna kind of get into it and talking about the types of artificial intelligence because that is important because there are different types, and we are going to kind of focus on a particular few that are the most commonly talked about. And let me share my screen real quick. And here's just kind of a little reference as we discuss more about it. You want to take it away, Sam?
Thank you. So I think we can start by saying that we're not experts by any means. AI is a gigantic topic, and it takes some of the most brilliant minds now to develop it and to really understand what's going on under the hood. But also, there are so many resources out there that if you really want to look into the specifics of all these terms, just Google it or ask ChatGPT or whatever your preferred platform is for more details. And I will say also that there are many introductory courses out there that teach you the basics. So I remember I didn't quite get through all of one of them, but I did maybe half of it to go through basic terminology. And it does help get an idea of all these nuances and the differences between the different terms that we use, right? So I think I might just touch on a couple of them, and then I'm sure Gabby and Zoe, you can also say a couple of things, and we'll keep it very superficial, but just so that we get a bit of a foundation before we move on into more practical things. So I think the perhaps more interesting one is what they call general artificial intelligence, because that's the stuff of science fiction, right? So when you were watching those movies where robots can speak and do all kinds of things that humans do, that's general artificial intelligence, right? So they've reached a point where they can do everything a human can do. Some years ago, people would say that, oh, we'll never get there. Now, OpenAI, they're saying we're gonna get there in the next 20 years. So who knows if we're actually gonna get there? But so that's more of, it's not quite the topic for today. Today, we're talking more about narrow AI. So that's tools that are more specific for particular tasks. And this is also different from, there's also some tools and technologies from before that dealt more with machine learning or different algorithms. So it was still computers, and they still did a lot of very complex computations, but it wasn't artificial intelligence per se, right? So when we're talking about narrow AI, there's also some subcategories. Gabby, maybe if you can go back to the slide with the terminologies. Yeah. All right. So within our AI, we have different things like generative AI. So the name is also pretty self-descriptive, generative. So it generates things. It generates text, it generates images, videos, audio. So it's actually creating something, so to say, new. There is also predictive AI, or there are models that process data. So still, there's a bit of a difference between a very specific algorithm that happened before AI, and then models that actually come up with new ways to process data and take much bigger amounts of data to predict and to analyze the data. So again, not an expert, so hopefully I'm not saying anything that's wrong, but that's generally the point, that we have the general AI, we have narrow AI, and within narrow AI, we have all these specific tools and models that we're using. So the one that most people know about is ChatGPT. That's what you would call a large language model. Why is it large language model? Because it takes vast, huge amounts of data, and that's what it uses to create text. So what it is doing is that it's taking all of this data, and then it's predicting what word actually should follow the word that previously happened based on the prompt. Very complex. I don't know the inner workings of it, but it's a bit of a prediction model, right? And then it's taking new and new data to make better predictions. And then that's also along with statistics and predictions, and then things that we're not going to talk about today. But that's, I think, generally what we're going to talk about today. Narrow AI, generative models, and within that, large language models, and then also models that are creating, for example, images and video and audio. Yeah. So, Gabby, anything else you would add to that?
I feel like you covered a lot. And I think that just the encouragement to, like, when you're exploring something new, there are going to be more terms that come up, and to just keep digging into them, because uh, it's also going to keep developing. Like, there's going to be new terminology probably next week to talk about new advances in AI. So to memorize a full list of words isn't going to really get you where you need to go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that was good. Thanks, Sam. Okay, so now that we've kind of given you this overview, sorry, I was trying to get stuff set up for my portion, but we're going to talk a little bit about how AI exists in or can exist in the field of music therapy. So it can be, clinical stuff in session, but also things related to the logistics or out of session work or research or education and things like that. So in session, a lot of generative AI can be used. I've personally used it to aid in songwriting when I don't have enough time to actually write a song with a client. I currently work in like subacute settings, and so um, I will have a group and they'll probably create the lyrics or aspects of lyrics and they'll want to turn it into a song, but due to time we just don't have the resources to create a song even though I already know how to do that. So I'll sometimes use Suno, um, which is basically a songwriting thing, and you can give it a genre and you can give it a topic, and it'll create like a song basically. Oh, dang, not logged on. Hold on, y'all. This is what I was trying to set up. I'm already signed in. Hold on. Here. There you go. Cool. All right. Create a song. Let's say I want to create a punk song about how I don't like AI, and then it'll create it. And then it'll load, and then it'll just make a song. Maybe this is the one that I have that I created earlier. Right? So it's like I can either give it a prompt or I can create the actual lyrics with clients and then it'll turn it into a song, which if I had more time, honestly, I would probably I would create it using the actual resources that I have, but AI kind of just makes it a little bit more quicker. Um, One of the issues with this, though, is a lot of the discussion around how it is generative, so it learns from artists. So it'll like take popular musicians and their styles and learn how they created stuff and then use that in order to create these songs. So, is that stealing intellectual property? Yes, but also no at the same time because it's turning it into its own thing. So that's kind of a conflicting aspect of this generative songwriting tool.
Suno,
Um, Go ahead.
before you move away from Suno, I just think it's like a really interesting company as well, just because a lot of their like they make an emphasis on employing musicians and music focused people and people who are really passionate about music. And they're so like the company culture is kind of is interesting because in from like a Suno perspective, and there's some really interesting interviews with their CEO, they really compare it to the way that like musicians learn, like we as musicians learned from listening to musicians. And so there are those parallels, but it's also been at the center of like some um some kind of well-deserved like discussions and controversies where like Gabby said like they are using to like it all has to be trained. AI has to be trained with source material just like we have to learn from listening and learning. Um and with that they are pulling from places. I think it's also interesting like when they rolled out I think it was version 3. I don't Suno's had different iterations and versions that like get better and better and better. And when they rolled out version 3, one of their big things was that acoustic music sounded much better, sounded much more real. Um, and they used a sample of Delta blues to demonstrate that, like in a Delta blues style, which is a music that is rooted in Black resistance, in traditions of enslaved people. And a lot of the folks who monetarily gain from Suno are not Black, are or the people that are producing music are not Black. And you can apply that to various different communities. So there's like that potential for like digital blackface, um, and the appropriation of music that is not within us, because we know that like the music that we take time to learn, we don't just learn how to produce it auditorially. Like we learn about, if we're, really sinking into it, we're learning about who were the creators, who were um, what was the cultural impact of that music? How did it come about? And it kind of removes that impetus to dig deeply into the why of the music and the who of the music, and allows people to really quickly mass produce something that has really rich contextual, um, yeah, really rich context. So,
Yeah.
deep dive in Suno real quick, but it just, before we move away, I know it's like the kind of the most popular um generative music production tool. And there are all these cool ins and outs with it, kind of like Gabby mentioned, where you can like write your own lyrics, you can, produce really any type of music. Samuel, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I think I think that there are different kind of levels to it. If we're now, say, talking about songwriting and AI in music therapy, I think something like Suno, I've personally haven't used it much yet, but you give it a very simple prompt and you already have a final product. But there's a lot of steps that you can take in between. So what I do more often rather than this is have to help more with the text. And then with the music, there are some folks, some clients I work with where they might create their own beat and their own music, completely from zero. And there are some who might take another track from a different song, and there's another AI. There are more AI tools as well where you can take out the voice so that people can still sing and include their own text into it. Or you can also have AI generate just the music background and then have people sing over that. So I think this is not so much addressing the issue about giving credit to musicians, it's going in another direction. But I think I just wanted to point out that it all depends on the goals that you might have and the amount of time that you have with some folks, right? Like what Gabby was saying, sometimes you don't have the resources and the time to go through and create a whole text with somebody. And the thing is too, like sometimes they just come with it. Like even if you don't introduce these tools to them, they come to the session and tell you, "Hey, I wrote a text with ChatGPT," and then it's already there. So you can either, one as a music therapist can either say, "No, that's no good. AI is no good, so let's not use that." Or we can say like, "Okay, well, let's talk about it. What was your prompt?" It could be very interesting to think about the way that kids and just folks in general are writing prompts. Maybe the act of writing the prompt could be a very interesting topic of discussion. And then once it generates something, then it could be a matter of, okay, how much are they identifying with it? So I've had kids who sing the text and then we record them with the music track. So it's actually their voice singing whatever the text ChatGPT gave them. And some of them really embrace it, right? Like even if they didn't actually sat down and wrote it all themselves, they still see parts of them in that text and they identify with it. And then hearing their own voice being recorded, it sort of rehumanizes the AI generated content, right? So I think that's what it is about. It's about rehumanizing whatever it's generating. So it's more of a tool rather than just a way to replace our work. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting, like when we're talking about a therapy context, it does have really different considerations than maybe like a music industry sales point of view, or more public facing generation. And just kind of considering like, yes, it's about individual goals and it's about like what we mean to do in the session. And it's also about like who that participant is. If we think about like a disability lens, like are there liberative potentials in this for folks to realize, music that is really meaningful for them? And maybe it's not going to be shared everywhere, but it's an accessible platform that maybe songwriting and lyric generation is really available to someone who uses AAC or like types to write, and but like they either aren't interested or there are kind of access barriers to the creation of acoustic music. And this is a really flexible platform. So it's definitely about like the individual that you're working with, the group that you're working with, and like where that happens in the process. Is it in the song? Is it in the lyric writing? Is it in the idea generation? Is it in the um instrumental aspects? Is it in the visual production? Like you take all this time to write a song, and like they want visuals to go with it. And there are generative visual options. It's a lot of the work that I'm doing right now. Like I have a participant or two that like we have really from scratch created the music aspect of it. And that visual component is kind of that last key that is really important to the final product, but is less like we're more flexible in using AI generated stuff in that realm in that particular session. So it's just really it's specific to like the people you're working with.
Yeah, kind of in relation to the visual, things like Canva or even other sources can, create the visual aspect. So, for example, if I wanted to create album cover for the song, like I would just type this in and then it would generate some images. Again, it's learning from other, visual artists, which isn't the same as music artists, but like it's, still the question of like intellectual content or property is like up in the air. So example, I could just choose from one of these three and create that as the album cover. I've had clients in the past where we'll be doing something multimodal, and I'll ask them to draw something or create something on their tablet in relation to whatever we're discussing or the song that we're analyzing. And more recently, I've had clients using AI, particularly because they're not confident in their drawing skills. And this is a music therapy session. So, like, you know, maybe they weren't expecting to draw or like just don't have that or aren't confident enough. And using AI, I mean, it makes them feel successful and it maybe create something better than they could have and hits on the metaphors or like everything that they're trying to tell me through the drawing um in something that's created by AI. So that's kind of another aspect to like the usefulness of AI in regards to like clients success and client confidence, I guess. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
And I think also it can also, well, I have two thoughts. One is that it can be a way of helping people think critically about it, because I think that's the big conversation right now about what using AI does to your brain. So that there was a big study, right, that we all know that our brain on ChatGPT is completely turned off. So, but I think that's I didn't read the study in detail, but I can definitely understand if somebody's having AI create a paper on a particular topic and they're not even reading it, then of course the brain is not going to activate and they're not going to learn anything. But I think if they're using it as a research material or they're using it as a starting point and then they're actually going through it and thinking critically, then that's a different story. And I think that also applies to sessions and the way we work with people. So if we're having, for example, a kid just come in and with their chat GPT generated text, and we're not even asking them, okay, well, what do you think about the text? Why do you like about it? What don't you like about it? What will you change? Then we're also training them to take AI generated content at face value rather than thinking critically about it. So the same thing with images. If they just take the first thing that they see, then they're going to learn that, okay, it is what it is, rather than thinking that they can actually think critically about it. I think that's going to be one of the biggest challenge for kids growing up in this AI era, to think critically about everything. I mean, we now need to think double think about everything that is posted on social media. Is this real or is this AI generated? So critical thinking is such a huge thing. And the second thought that is sort of related is I was reading or seeing a video that for image generation, there are things, for example, like, I don't know if you could try writing a left-handed person playing a guitar, because there are things that that it just cannot create because it doesn't have that raw data, or even something like a watch showing 10 to 12 or something, right? So that's sort of the critical thinking things that if people don't know about it, right, they're all right-handed. It's not going to create a left-handed for you no matter how much you try. Yeah. Uh, so then I think we also wanted to talk about these stereotypes and this bias that is being replicated through this model. So no matter how much we try, AI is not going to generate the underrepresented. Okay, now they do try to, I don't know if you've noticed, they also push a lot of people of color into their image generation. I don't know how intentional that is, but things like a left-handed person, okay, that they're not going to be represented, right? But